Today, we're going to be doing example 4, starting here, where you can see that the leading coefficient is 3. See how it's a number other than 1? So we're just following the same 6 steps that we did last class. It's just now we have to do step 2. All right, so let's start this. Someone read me from the reference sheet step 1. What's the first thing I do whenever I would need to solve by completing the square? Set it equal to the constant, right? I subtract 15 on both sides. So I'm going to get 3x squared plus 12x equals negative 15. Okay. Step 2, we've got to do that today, right? Step 2 says factor out the leading coefficient in front of x squared. If the leading coefficient is 1, you don't have to worry about factoring a 1 out. But today it's 3. Okay, so I do have to worry about factoring this 3 out. I'm going to put a 3 on the outside of parentheses, and I'm going to write x squared plus, what's 12x divided by 3? 4x equals negative 15. See, I factored a 3 out. Any questions about that? Okay, so step 3 says complete the square on the side of the equation with the x squared and x term. You'll need to divide the constant in front of x by 2 and then square it. So I'm going to write 3. I'm going to have my parentheses. I'm going to put x squared plus 4x plus box equals negative 15 plus box. Again, I like to do that first just to remind myself to balance the equation. Okay, so I need to complete the square on the left side, and then whatever I use to complete the square, I've got to balance it out on the right side. Okay, so how do I get what goes in this box? I take whatever the b value is in front of x, right? So 4, I divide it by 2, and I square it, right? That's what's going to go in the box. So I have 4 divided by 2 is 2, squared is 4. Okay. Now, what am I going to put in the box on the other side of the equal sign? Think about what you're adding over here. What am I adding on the left side of the equation? Not just 4. Yeah, say it loud. 12. Excellent. Imagine multiplying this 3 back through. 3x squared plus 12x plus 12. See how really I'm adding 12 over here on the left-hand side? Okay, it's not just 4. You're adding 12. So you got to make sure when you balance the equation, you don't just put a 4 here. You've got to put 12. It's a little bit tricky. Okay, so the leading coefficients other than 1 trip people up all the time because you really have to think about what you're adding to this side. Okay, that's the tricky part. You can make it through that step, and you're good for the rest of this. Okay. So step 4 says factor the side of the equation with the x squared and x term. So over here, I want to factor this side. 3. And what's this going to factor to be? X and x gives me x squared. What multiplies to give me 4 and adds to give me 4? 2 and 2. What are my signs in the middle? Plus. Right, everything's positive over here. And then on this side, negative 15 plus 12 would be minus 3. Okay, so I'll get 3 x plus 2 quantity squared equals negative 3. Okay. So on the reference sheet it says factor the side of the equation with the x squared and x term. We now have something that looks like, and it has a x plus p squared equals q. Okay, I've got this square root equation. Okay. What do I need to do before I can square root? Divide by 3, right? We need to isolate the x plus 2 quantity squared. Got to get what's being squared by itself. Okay, so I'm going to divide both sides by 3. We're going to get x plus 2 squared equals negative 1. So that was step 5. Step 5 said isolate the squared expression and take the square root on both sides of the equation. So I need to take the square root on both sides of the equation, right? Now that I've isolated this, I square root this side, square root this side. We get x plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 1. Step 6 says add or subtract the number by x, right? So I've got plus 2. What's the inverse of adding 2? Subtracting 2, right? So if I subtract 2 from both sides, I'll get negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 1. Is that the best answer? What is the square root of negative 1? I, right? The square root of negative 1 is I. So I'm going to have x equals negative 2 plus or minus I. Two solutions. Negative 2 plus I is a solution, and negative 2 minus I is a solution. If you were to graph this, would you have any x-intercepts here? No, negative 2 plus I, negative 2 minus I, these are imaginary numbers. They're not going to show up on a graph. Okay? Imaginary numbers don't show up on a real number graph. So you know. Okay? Any questions about that? X equals negative 2 would not be enough. You do have to write the plus I and the minus I with it. Your answer is an imaginary one. Yep, good question.